Anxious versus avoidant. Can they work out? Can they heal? Can they work together? Can they grow together? Or are they just not meant to be? So we're going to answer all those from questions and comments that I've been getting on my social media. Let's just dive right in to the first question that I got. And it's a very common one. And that question is from Chef Bobod on IG. The question goes, can an avoidant and anxious attachment heal together in a relationship? Right? So that is a great question. And usually that question comes from a lot of struggle, right? Struggling together, like, is it just incompatible? Do we have to break up and heal separately? And is it really possible to make it work together, healing together? And the answer is yes and no. There is one fundamental caveat that every relationship needs in order to last long term. And whether you heal, you grow together, you adapt, and you learn to, come into harmony at some point, right? To come into more secure attachment. And that number one trait that they both need to have, not just one person, is a desire for growth, a desire for growth, but also the ability to be introspective, right? Just a sense of reflecting on yourself, on your actions, and how those actions affect other people. Right? You have to have that ability. If you do have that ability, then you have the ability and the level of consciousness to do the work to heal. Now, it's an interesting question, right? Healing together. And I want to make it very clear here is that there's nothing that you can do as an avoidant to heal someone that has anxious attachment. There's nothing that you can do as an anxiously attached person to heal the avoidant. Yes, you can be supportive, you can soothe them, you can help calm them down by giving them what they need if you have the presence of mind, if you're not extremely triggered yourself, but you cannot actually heal their deep childhood wounds. That is an inside job. What you can do is create safe space and support, right? But then they have to want to do the healing work and go into themselves to meet those fears and pains, wounds, and traumas themselves. Now, it's hard if your partner's not supportive of that. Does things maybe to sabotage it, diminish it. That can be harder, but it's still on you. Whether you decide to do the work on yourself or not, it's not dependent on your partner. That's the number one thing. It doesn't matter whether they support you or not. You still got to do the work on yourself. Now, whether you stay in the relationship together long term, that's a different story. Second thing I want to add to that is that the healing isn't about what you get from them, whether you're an avoidant, anxiously attached, disorganized attachment, whatever your attachment is, or your behavioral traits. If you're codependent, people pleaser, and an empath. So whatever the things are, what the real gift is in relationships is them just being their natural self, which they will oftentimes, I would just say 100% of the time, they're your counterpart. So if you're anxious, they're going to be avoidant. If you're more the people pleaser type, your partner's going to be more controlling, right? And vice versa. So your counterpart, them being them, will naturally trigger you. And how do we heal? We have to get in touch with the pain that we've been suppressing, avoiding, ignoring, or expecting somebody else to soothe for us, right? That's the number one thing, is that we have to make contact with that pain inside and touch it and learn how to move through it through our nervous system, somatically, do some, lots of deep subconscious reparenting of the inner child, but very much is the feeling that we have to touch fundamentally as a bedrock of healing. So, if it is true that connecting and feeling the pain is how we begin to heal, then that means that when they trigger us and we feel those emotional pains, that's actually our window for healing. We have the guidance and training to do so, right? And the consciousness to take that triggering moment and face it. So in a very indirect way, our partners help us heal by triggering us. In fact, it's not even about our partners. Anybody in life that triggers us gives us a window of opportunity. I could use this as a victimization moment to really go into my head and judge them for triggering me. How dare you do that thing? You should not have ever done that. Or I can reflect on that and get curious about the trigger. Oh, that thing they did stirred up some very difficult, uncomfortable emotions for me. That gets to be my opportunity to examine that, to feel it, to also explore it and learn where it really came from. Because oftentimes it had nothing to do with what they're doing. It's what it reminded us subconsciously of the past, and all the times when we were a little girl or a little boy struggling with that same pain. Obviously, I can go down a deep rabbit hole on all of that, but in short, yes, you can heal together in a relationship, not because you can heal them or they can heal you, but them being themselves, triggering you, gets you in touch with your own shit. And then therefore you can do the inner work, which is an inside job to then heal that pain, right? If you follow the right processes. So, kind of a long answer to that because there's just so much context that has to be shared about that. All right, next question. It is from Archangel137. Again, a comment from IG. How to help an avoidant deal with anxiety over having emotional conversations. So again, what you can do to support them is not going to heal them. That's an inside job. But you can still be understanding of one another's triggers, right? You can be understanding and try our best not to trigger them. But if it happens, it's meant to happen because, again, these wounds do not go away just by tiptoeing around each other's triggers. They're going to come up regardless. With that said, though, this is more like a level 1 type of understanding of how to deal with these issues. But nonetheless, as far as dealing with an avoidant, when it comes to avoidant, you always try, if you can, give them the space and agency. The number one thing is agency, because for an avoidant, a big part of their wounding is that they were not given agency, basically choice, to decide for themselves how they feel when they want to express their feelings, what they want to do with those feelings, right? They experienced a lot of control or enmeshment growing up. And so they always have to abandon themselves or lose themselves for somebody else. And so that's a big fear for them. And so, what you don't want to do is try to force difficult conversations on them or uncomfortable conversations with them, which is going to be difficult for you because their natural avoidant traits will trigger your abandonment, feeling alone, unseen, unheard. That space is very difficult for an anxious person, but you giving them that space is your path to healing, because in the process of you giving them the space and giving them the choice, like, hey, we can talk about this if you want, but if you're not ready for that, that's okay, right? That kind of thing, that's very beneficial for someone that's avoidant. At the same time, they still have to work on their avoidant issues at some point, right? So hopefully they wake up to it within themselves. But regardless, the biggest thing is, yes, give them the space, give them a choice, respect that. But more important than that, work on your own anxious attachment issues, right? Because that's going to be very difficult. It's going to serve lots of emotional distress inside you to give them that space and not having an answer right away. All right, next question from Akim Anna Maria 98. When does a dismissive avoidant, which is just in short an avoidant, start to change things? He is resistant to change, right? So when does an avoidant start to change? He's resistant to change. When there's enough pain. And when he or she experiences that repeating pain again and again, loud enough, with enough repetition, they eventually wake up and they start to reflect, like, why am I doing this again and again? Unfortunately, it might not be with you, right? This relationship might crash. They might go to another relationship and then recreate the same, what I call the relationship loop of doom, the same loop of doom with the next relationship. It happens again and again. And then finally, that pain wakes them up to finally look at themselves. And that's really the case for most people, regardless of avoidant attachment or whatever attachment issue. We have to experience a pain again, like a repeating pattern, and it has to be loud enough and repetitious enough to kind of like wake us up. It's like a slap to the face, like, wow, it's like Groundhog Day. I'm experiencing the same thing again, different person, same situation. What's going on here? And that is the catalyst to awakening and starting to explore oneself. But more important than that, though, than anything I said, instead of trying to figure them out, which is, it's part of relationships to understand them, more important than that is, how about you changing yourself? You're saying he's resistant to change. Are you doing the work to change yourself? Are you doing the work to heal and work on your abandonment issues, right? All the stuff, the deepest fears of someone that has an anxious attachment, are you working on those issues? Because that, and only those things, are what you have control over, not the other person, and really not anybody. Next question, the Wild Bee Trute. Again, it's from IG. The question goes, partner is not aware of father wound, not in terms with father, but lives like his father with ego. So partner is not aware of his father wound, but acts, I think they're trying to say that they act like their own father and they're not aware of it. Again, a lot of these questions I'm noticing is trying to figure out the other person. If I can figure them out or get them to own up to how they're behaving in the relationship, then they can change. and therefore stop what? Triggering me. So I don't have to be uncomfortable. And so it's really not about, what you want for the partner. It's really more about you wanting to feel better. And so if they can change and understand and see their stuff, then I can feel better, right? So you're making your emotional wellness dependent on the other person. So the real question you should ask yourself is, what about your father wounds? What about your mother wounds? Are you exploring those? And are you doing the actual work to heal that? And extremely hard work, very painful, which is why most people don't do the deep work of facing the pain inside, facing it, seeing it, most importantly of all, feeling through it. So that's the best way that's the best way I could answer it to make it a lot more useful for you. Okay, next question is, how can an avoidant and anxious partner can heal each other without breaking up? Again, I'll answer in two parts. Number one, you do not heal each other. We already discussed that very detailed in the first one or two questions. You have to heal yourself, right? And your partner becomes your catalyst to get you in touch with your own wounds. And you have the choice to either go into victimization or connect to that feeling that's coming up inside you. Instead of blaming anyone, connect to it. How does it feel? Can you let yourself feel it? Obviously, I'm simplifying the feeling aspects of what I help clients do, but feeling it in simple terms and also getting curious where those feelings really came from, and then start to do some inner child reparenting work, right? Some deep subconscious reprogramming. So shift the focus on your own wounds. Like, where are these wounds that are coming up? Can I face them? Can I feel them? That's where your work is. And if you can do that, that gives you the best chance of not breaking up. You might break up still if regardless, if you're not growing together, you grow apart, right? So that's why I said in one of the first questions is, you have to both have the intention or the capability or traits to have self-reflection, and you have both the value of wanting to grow as people, right? So that means being curious about yourself, challenging your fears and behavior patterns, especially those addictive behavior patterns or those things that you do impulsively. All right, next question. This is a good one because it's very common. My partner is an anxious avoidant and very insecure. Is it my job to make him feel more secure? So again, yes, lots of caveats here. We do our best to show up for a partner, to give them their needs without trying to abandon ourselves, right? As we try our best. Part of being secure is finding that balance where you are responsive to them, you care about their needs, but you also know when the caring for their needs starts to override yourself, and there's like a sense of abandonment happening. Right? And the easy way to tell that there's a self-abandonment happening is you feel drained, you feel tired, you feel exhausted, right? Easy sign. Your energy starts to drop too much because you're giving too much, right? That's where you're being overly responsible for them. In this case, being overly responsible for someone to be quote unquote secure. At the same time, you doing the work to try to help them feel secure, to support them, right? To be a supportive partner is likely the hardest thing you'll ever have to do, because in order to give them to help them feel secure and just basically give them their needs, you'll have to face a lot of pain to do so. So what do I mean by that? So in this case, my partner is anxious, avoidant, and very insecure. So I'm not sure if it's the both or either, but one of them is anxious, one of them avoidant. Maybe they flip either way. Oftentimes, for example, if you're an anxious person, and it kind of goes back to one of the examples before, and the other partner is avoidant, their needs are what? They want more space, they want time, they want agency and choice. They don't want you to be pushing, demanding, controlling, right? Trying to force them to come to a decision or be there for you or whatever it is, right? So by you letting go and allowing the uncertainty, allowing the space, not knowing the answers, very terrifying for someone that's anxiously attached, right? The abandonment trauma is going to come right up. That, again, feeling unseen, unheard, alone, all those feelings are going to come up and they're going to try to hijack your brain. And so that's why the work is to get into the body to feel, right? So by giving that to them, you have to get in touch with your pain. And so there's a benefit also to giving your partner their needs. On the other side, if you are the avoidant partner and your partner is anxious and they need you to reassure them, to communicate, to hold space for them, to hear them and validate their emotions and feelings, that is scary as hell for the avoidant, right? If I open myself up to hold space, if I express myself to them because they want emotional connection, if I express myself to them, or if I try to hear what they have to say, I might open myself up to punishment, criticism, being blamed and shamed, right? Or attacked. I don't want to do that, right? So once again, those are the pains, right? Shame, not feeling good enough, feeling unsafe in conflict, unsafe and scared to be vulnerable. All those uncomfortable feelings will come up to the surface. Guess what? That is your treasure of healing. We want to bring those feelings up, and so you giving your partner their needs brings all that discomfort and uncomfortable emotion up to the surface, and there you can meet those feelings and allow them to be felt. Even harder for the avoidant, because avoidants already don't want to deal with feelings. They want to ignore, make everything logical, and so, or just not deal with uncomfortable situations. So very hard, right? But as an avoidant, huge path of growth for you. So it's not even just about what you give to them. It's about the person that you become and what you heal in the process of giving your partner their needs. So it benefits you and it transforms you the more you can do that. It takes hell of a lot of practice to do that. Whether you're anxious, avoidant, lots of practice. But again, always back to what I said before, like you giving your partner their needs does not heal them, right? It builds relationship. It can feel good for the other partner, and it's nice to do that if you can. But it's not going to fundamentally heal their deepest trauma, or their wounds, or their attachment style. It won't change their attachment. The attachment changes when the person, whoever it is, takes the accountability of their own emotions and starts to process them and work through them, right? Through the body, not in the head. We have to get out of the head. It's not intellectual exercise. And so again, so much focus, again, is on the partner. It's like, bring that focus on yourself. What do you feel that comes up when you're trying to be there for your partner? What are those feelings about? Can you explore them? Can you feel them? Right? Bring it back to what's happening inside you. That's going to transform you in the long run. All right. So another question. Marco asks, why do avoidant people believe a relationship should not have conflicts? Very easy. An avoidant, you have to understand how an avoidant develops and becomes an avoidant. They, as a little boy or a little girl, they grew up in a household where there was likely tons of conflict. And then, there's also the minority where the avoidant grew up in a household where there was no conflict. No one talked about anything. Issues were ignored, swept under the rug, and there's just like the resentment, right? There's still energy there. Resentment, walls, silent treatment is what they experience from their parents, from one another. Still creates that tension, and it creates that conditioning that, we just avoid uncomfortable emotions, right? You can get conditioned by that. So that's one way that an avoidant can develop. But another, I think, common and more primary way, experiencing lots of conflict, either seeing the parents always in conflict or parents being very hard on them. So lots of conflict between you as a child and the parent, where the parent's very harsh, very aggressive, very diminishing and critical. So they're experiencing that in the family environment. And so they get the message as a child in the environment that I'm not safe, right? It's scary. Conflict is scary. It's overwhelming. So therefore, I should just either please, be accommodating, mold myself to soothe the conflict, because adult conflict to a child is very overwhelming and scary, right? Very much so. And so the way they cope is I try to soothe it, one way. The other way is to avoid it, right? So if I just withdraw, pull away, shut down, distract myself, run away, right? Whether they run away physically or within their mind or suppress their emotions. There's so many ways that they avoid. They don't want to deal with conflict because conflict equals feeling unsafe, because that's what they experienced as a child, right? So in simple terms, that's that. Okay, got another comment. It's a fun comment. It's out of the conversation of anxious attachment, but I want to tackle this one because it's very much, we can all fall into this, okay? We can all fall into this, but it very much comes from that victim energy. And I'm not saying that as a judgment, because we all fall into that to some degree at different times with different people in different situations. The question goes, how to deal with an extreme self-centered and double-faced partner? Well, the funny thing about relationships is that they're oftentimes mirrors to us. And oftentimes, the very thing that we viciously judge them for, we are oftentimes guilty of as well. And we attract the partners that are often mirrors. They are polar opposite mirror reflection of us. So oftentimes they have similar things that they do that we also do as well, but maybe we suppress it and they just explode it out onto us, but we still have the same energy inside. So I'm going to ask you, where have you been self-centered, double-faced as well? You say something, you don't mean it. Where in life does that show up for you? Because oftentimes, because I can sense judgment behind that, the thing we judge and we project outward is what we have inside us as well, right? So that's number one, is where in life does that show up for you? Because the reason why we want to be accountable, because we can change that. Again, you can't control whatever that your partner does, but you can't control yourself. So you can see where it's showing up for you. You can actually address what causes that, own it, change it within yourself, and then, like everything in life, and especially relationships, is a mirror. As you change it in yourself, you see it change outside. Your partner starts to change in how they respond to you because you are a different person, so they're responding to a different person. So that's one. Number two is, where else in life have you experienced this energy from somebody? Did you experience it growing up as a child, where you had a sibling, parents that were self-centered, double-faced, they say one thing, they do another thing, they're hypocrites, that kind of thing? Where else does that show up? And likely there's pain around that person hurt you. And so now there's a protection mechanism that you develop to judge it and try to control it, push it away, right? There's a judgment energy that either if I can judge it, I can control it, I can change it so I don't have to feel the pain of it. Or I avoid it, run away from it, different ways to cope with the pain. And so if you're experiencing that and there's pain there, that means until you address the pain underneath those judgments, you will experience that projection of the pain outwardly again and again in the people around you, especially the people closest to you. I say that not to, to put you on the spot. It's not judgment. It's like that thinking. If you can ask yourself these questions and take yourself through this and process the pain inside that's associated with that, is going to break you free. And then, therefore, as the energy and the trauma changes inside you and releases, then you're going to see it happen to you less outside yourself, right? Because fundamentally, our outside, our relationships, our environment, our relationships, all of it is an outward projection of how we feel inside. And I see it happen all the time. As soon as people really start doing deep transformational healing work, right? Because I work with lots of clients, they start to take ownership of their own environment, their own emotional environment, their triggers, their pains, and the stuff that comes up inside them. When they start to heal that and change that, it is incredible how that starts to reflect on the world around them. People start to respond to them differently, or old relationships fall out because they're no longer a match. New relationships come in, and they are much more healthier and a better reflection of how they already feel within themselves, right? So how you feel inside yourself, if you love yourself, if you don't hold a lot of pain in yourself, if you have self-acceptance, self-compassion, you honor yourself, you have boundaries, you speak up for yourself, but you're also open to other people, all that gets reflected back to you, right? So what's inside you gets reflected back to you. It's a big one. It's critical. It's everything. All right, we'll do 2 more questions and wrap it up. We got Michelle asks, why are some people in denial of their wounds? They think they have dealt with it, but certainly have not. Well, the question comes back again to you. Why do you need them to deal with their wounds or accept their wounds? What's the emotional distress coming up inside you in response to them being stuck in their pattern? Because it's also a pattern, your own pattern, that wants to change them, right? Which is not going to give you freedom. You've been in a perpetual hamster wheel of trying to control the uncontrollable, and that hamster wheel never stops. And so, where are you not seeing your own stuck wounds that you're not addressing, and you're trying to focus on somebody else and change them instead, right? Where does that show up for you, ultimately? And I always bring it back to you, our inner selves, right? Because that's what we can change. And we change that, then back to the principle of the mirror principle, it then reflects outward in the people around us. And the last one is how to tell how to tell someone if they're dismissive avoidant without offending them. I think a great way is because they're sensitive to criticism and being made wrong, right? So you send them a video on, like, if you have a partner who's avoidant and you send them a video on, avoidant attachment and is pointing out all their flaws, that's like already the biggest thing that they hate, is being made wrong and criticized and, like, have their perceived inadequacies and flaws pointed out to them, right? Already sensitive. But what you can do is send them videos on relationship dynamics that also hold you accountable. So if they're avoidant, guaranteed you're anxious, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be attracted to them, or vice versa. It's matching energy, matching opposite energy, like a positive and negative charge. Always the anxious with the avoidant. If you show them a video that shows both your dynamics, that also calls you out, so they know, like, oh, we're both in this together. No one is being blamed here. It's just like, this is us, both of us, right? That can be helpful, not guaranteed, but gives you a much better shot than just sending them a bunch of videos talking about avoidant traits and what they do wrong and, pointing out all their flaws, right? I have great videos on this YouTube and on Instagram on what I call the relationship loop of doom. It does an excellent job of talking about this loop. Definitely check that out and, give it a shot. Send that to them. I've had so many clients come to me and they said that video woke them up. Their partner sent me this video and they got it. And that started to open up the journey of introspection, growth, and to explore, like, oh, I didn't know that these behaviors came from here and here, and now I want to work on them. Like, what do I do about these wounds now, right? So I get it a lot. It can be very powerful when you send the right kind of content. You just don't want to send the content that just makes it all about them, right? That's the wrong approach. I mean, it's not going to feel good if that happened to you. If people are sending you stuff about all your stuff, that how you're screwing up, doesn't feel good, right? It's just basic human principles. So something that kind of like shows that we're in this together. It's not just you, it's me as well, right? We're both doing it. Very helpful. That's it for the questions, guys. I'm going to wrap this up. Lots of topics, lots of questions answered. Hopefully that was helpful. Follow me on YouTube, Instagram. There's definitely more videos, so definitely check out the next videos. They're already suggested around here. I think it's near the end credit. Check out the next video right now.